Hi, I'm Susie Shaefer. I am a member of the Young Clergy Women Project, which exists because you are not the only one, if you are me. I am going to end up circling back around, I think, to Nadia a little bit. Because our experience having Verity come, she joined us at our annual board meeting at Duke a couple years ago, year and a half, and had us asking questions that had never occurred to us because we only exist on social media and always have. So the Young Clergy Women Project started in 2007 on a blog, and it's now an organization with 820 women. There is a woman named Susan Olson who works at Yale Div, and she was finding in recent grads that the experience of leaving a seminary community where there were other young women pursuing the ministry and being dispersed around the country was isolating, lonely, hard, all the things you might imagine it was. And so she started gathering them through people she knew by reading blogs on a password-protected blog, just so we could start talking about what it is to be 26 and female and ordained in the Christian tradition. That is the sum total of what our members have in common. Through that process, we started gathering in person, we had conferences, and we came to the purpose of our group, which is simply to say that you are not the only one, that everyone has a yearning to belong, that isolation is a problem for Christian ministry, and in a little tiny corner of Christian ministry, we can do that, some service. So we started talking with ourselves and then realized that to truly deal with the isolation that ministers face, and particularly ministers who share these characteristics with us, we had to be more public about it. And so we started moving out of our protected space and wrote an e-zine. It's called Fidelia Sisters. Some of you might have seen it at Young Clergy Women. And then we had to start figuring out this public and private thing that Nadia was talking about, almost from the other direction, because we had a protected space. We're not a congregation, we're an organization. We're an institution, really, although I don't think most of our members would like to say that. And we had to figure out how it is that Christian communities can be sharing their stories and having internal support that sometimes requires not being so public. And social media is the best way to do it. Most of our members speak social media fluently. I had a computer in my house in kindergarten. It's a little on the early side, but my parents were computer programmers, and I didn't join Facebook till after it grew up, apparently. But social media is a language our people speak to, and it helps us cross the main thing that caused us trouble, which is geography. The geography of being a young clergy woman is isolating because most of us don't live near other young clergy women. I live in a metropolitan area and have the advantage of having friends who share my calling and my particular life situation, but most of us don't. And social media gets us past that in a way that builds actual community. And that is what Verity's visit and this whole project helped us start asking about. Are we a real community? Well, I can tell you that in our closed Facebook group, which is currently where we mostly live, we have conversations about how to get divorced when you're pastoring a church. We have conversations about how to announce a pregnancy in a church. We have conversations about how to report allegations of abuse when the abuser and the victim are both in your youth group. Yeah. And we have conversations about what color shoes should go with your formal dress that you have to wear to your diocesan event. I did mention we're young and women. So in thinking about this private and public conversation, at our meeting last year, one of our board members described us as a choose-your-own-adventure organization. We all grew up with choose-your-own-adventure books. if you're roughly 30. And the thing about Choose Your Own Adventure books is, so you get to a certain point, and then you can decide, you know, do you want the dragon to win the fight, or do you want the dragon to lose the fight? If you want the dragon to lose, you turn to page 120, and then you get that story. Or, if you were like me, you could figure out how much time you had to read and flip through the endings and just make the story fit in the amount of time you had before you had to go pick your sister up from ballet class. Our group and the way we use social media functions a little bit like that. We have stumbled our way into so many social media platforms that there's now all kinds of ways that you can interact with us as members. And I say stumbled because although our membership is by definition under 35 by majority, and then people retire out of our group at age 40, every time we have to find a new social media platform because the one we were using decided to start charging money, about half the board says, seriously, we have to learn another thing? But we do it. And in the process, we've ended up with sort of 3 different ways of doing social media. We have our public face. We have a Facebook page, we have a Twitter feed, and we have our e-zine, which helps us tell our stories in a way that makes us less isolated because it means we're not the only ones holding them. You guys know how that works in a congregation. We have the kind of information sharing social media. And I think this is the way a lot of congregations, that's how my congregation currently uses social media, where from one person or a committee of person, we're sharing information that you might like to have if you're interested in what we're doing. It's not really communication that goes both ways. It just gets information out there. And we hear from some of our members that that's enough to get in their monthly email a newsletter that says, no, really, you're still not the only one. There's a lot of us out here, and here's a prayer about that life, is plenty. But where we've found our meat is where Nadia's church landed too, which is a place that can be communal because it's more of a bounded set. There's guides about who's there, and there's come to be guides about how we act, although we've never really said that. What we're clear about is that what we have in common is age, calling, and gender. Beyond that, we have people working on gun control laws, and we have people working on pro-life legislation who talk about that in our group.
Are you all Christians?
We are all Christians. Every couple of years we debate the UU church, but we do have UU members, and every couple of years we debate how to help our sisters who are rabbis. But we have left the boundary at Christian ordination. Even that has proved to be life-expanding and broadening, because as you might imagine, we're predominantly mainline. And we've had to learn things about how churches who ordain people without going to a 3-year MDiv seminary like this one, what it means to be a pastor in that kind of congregation. So community and social media is not new. We didn't invent it, but we live it because it's where we exist. And it leads us to a lot of questions about what it means to be bounded and what it means to be public. We've gotten a lot of flack in our group because we actually kick people out when they age out of our demographic, and we're serious about our demographic. We don't slide that line very much, and it's simply how we've chosen to be. But by existing in social media and all of the pitfalls that come with a virtual existence, companies shutting down, fees going up, nobody understanding things, our friends in Europe not being able to actually use our technology, and then iPad with its lack of flash turned out to be a huge problem for us. We've learned all the ways that social media can be a tool, but since this is a place where we can come out of our congregations and think about what we're doing in our congregations, we have now, through this project, become come to talk about social media as a metaphor, which I think is one of the greatest gifts for our group of being part of this project. Through this project, we found out that our board members didn't all even agree what social media was, which shows up in our case study. But social media gets to be a metaphor for us about what it means to have private and personal lives, just as the project tries to figure out what it means to be both a private and public institution. Young adults in general are struggling with things like dating, families, how to be a pastor and a mom at the same time. One of the top hits ever on our online magazine is about one of our members writing an article. She was doing a VBS presentation, big church, and her, I think he was maybe 3 or 4 at the time, was sitting in the front and starts pitching a god-awful fit right in front of her while she's trying to do her lesson. And no one else in the congregation helped her out with him. And the lines between our private and public lives and how we live that out as clergy and as lay leaders in churches reflect the way we treat our social media. Social media helps us figure out how being willing to try new things, even when we have no idea what we're doing, gives us a little bit of courage to try it in our congregations too, whether it's social media or something else. Because we have, in, I guess, almost 6 years now, had 1, 2, 3, we're about to launch our 4th community sharing platform on Ash Wednesday, because clergy are so not busy on Ash Wednesday. We have used 3 different platforms to have board meetings as we've tried to wrestle with gathering people in Portland, Oregon, and Malmo, Sweden at the same time, which is about 8 time zones. And we've moved our blog across 3 different companies, all in 6 years. And they all have learning curves, and some of them have not worked. And we're not happy with some of what we have right now. But the practice of trying and liking it for a while and then being done with stuff has been really good for my ministry and for our project. So I guess I'm out of time too. I'll sum up by saying I'm not a social media guru either. I grew up around computers, so I sort of fall into it more than seek it out. And I'm probably mid-level in this group of young women for how adept we are at these technologies. But what we've found is trying it helps us in all of our ministry. Because the one thing that's true for everybody, whether you're young or clergy or female or none of the above, is that you are not alone in trying to figure this stuff out. So the Young Clergy Women Project is here to tell you that you, like us, are not alone. And I hope you have fun with it, like we do. Thanks.